Hello, this is Solving Equations Lesson 1. So we're going right back to the very beginning of solving equations. Before we do that, I gave you this learning check last lesson. So just check all your answers, please. I have marked them as well. The ones of those of you who sent that to me, thank you very much. So pause and mark. And also for those of you who did the challenge, those are the two answers on the challenge. So pause and mark. Okay, and thank you very much for all the work you sent me on that. Well done, you did some really good work. Okay, so let's look at this problem. So put the title Solve Equations Lesson 1 into your books. And then this is a problem. Okay, you don't need to write anything down yet. 4 apples cost £1.20. What does 1 apple cost? Well, you can probably work that out in your head. And what you were doing in your head, you were saying 4 apples cost, and I'm going to put it into pence, 120, because this is the same as 120 pennies. So to get 1 apple, well, what do I do to 120 to work out 1 apple? I divided it by 4, so I get 30 pennies. So 1 apple costs 30 pennies. So I've made this problem into a solving equations algebra problem. So the opposite of timesing by 4 is to divide by 4. So I've divided by 4 on both sides because 4a divided by 4 is just 1a. So this is what I'd like you to write in your books. I want you to write this example here. Solve 5b equals 10. You want to work out the value of what 1b is. So 5 times a number is 10. What is this number? Well, I need to do the opposite of timesing by 5. Remember, this means 5 times b. What's the opposite of timesing by 5 is to divide by 5. So I divide both sides of my equation by 5. 5b divided by 5 is 1b. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And you probably work that out straight away, that 5 times 2 is 10. We can just check that in our heads. Okay, let's look at one more example. Solve 3p equals negative 21. Don't worry about the negative, it's exactly the same method. I want to know what 1p is. So 3 times a number, 3 times something is negative 21. What's the something? Well, the something must be negative 7 because 3 lots of negative 7 is negative 21. How did I do that? I divided both sides by 3. Right, so you're going to have a go now. Oh, sorry, not yet, actually. Apologies, I am incorrect. We're going to look at this next, okay? We're going to look at solving this equation. Right, what does this sign here mean? Well, it means divide, okay? And what's the opposite of dividing? It's timesing. So I've got something divided by 2 that is 10. What's my something going to be? Now, some of you might think the answer is 5 because you did 10 divided by 2. But if you think about it, that's not correct. 5 divided by 2 is not 10, it's 2.5. My answer for P must be 20. 20 divided by 2 is 10. So what have I done to the 10 to get my answer? I've times by 2, the opposite of dividing by 2. I've times both sides by 2 to get my solution for 1p. Okay, a similar question. Okay, what is the value of my 1h? So what's the opposite of dividing by 3? Well, the opposite of dividing by 3 is to times by 3. So I get my answer to be negative 18. Let's just check that. Negative 18 divided by 3 is negative 6. Okay. Now this is the first time I've done solving equations with you, so please let me know if you think this is too tricky, and I'll do some easier work with you next lesson. Okay, let's look at this one. Solve y plus 5 equals 7. So something, if I covered that up, what would the number underneath my finger be? Well, what do you add to 5 to get 7? Well, you add 2 to 5. Now, if you didn't know that, what are you doing to get 2? Well, you're doing 7 take away 5 is 2. i.e., you're taking away 5 from both sides of the equation. If I take away 5 from this side, I'm left with y. If I take away 5 from 7, I get 2. My answer is y equals 2. Let's just double check that. 2 add 5 is 7. Okay, let's look at one more example. Something take away 4 is negative 2. What will my something underneath my finger be? So I need to get a negative answer. Okay. Now, what's the opposite of taking away 4? Well, the opposite of taking away 4 is to add 4. So if I add 4 to both sides of the equation, add 4, take away 4, just cancel each other out, and I'm left with p. And if I add 4 to negative 2, remember we did some work on negative numbers before half term. Okay, if I start at negative 2 and I go up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I end up at 2. So my answer is 2. Let's just double check that. 2 take away 4 is negative 2. Right, last one. Something add 7 is 3. What's my something? Well, the opposite of adding 7 is to take away 7. So I take away 7 from both sides. Think about 3, take away 7 on your number line, and you get negative 4. Right. Okay. So I want you to write these key facts, please, into your books. First key fact. Adding and subtracting are inverse functions. They're the opposite functions of each other. So if you add a number and then take away the same number, they will cancel each other out. And multiplication and division are opposite or inverse functions. Okay? So write these key facts out into your book, and you're going to use all of this for my module on solving equations. So I'm going to give you some, before I give you the learning check, I think it's important, oh actually you're going straight on to the learning check, apologies. So learning check, okay, I'd like you to do those 8 questions, write out the question, and all the time use the fact that adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing are inverse functions of each other. Okay, so give me your answers, please. There's only 8 questions. I really want you to understand this before we move on to harder solving equations next lesson. Bye-bye.